I don't understand.
You don't want to get mixed up with a guy like me. I'm a loner, Dottie. A rebel.
Get that straight face. Hey, what's up, guys? Tyler from the Ride Rebellion.
And Scotty.
We are here today. We finally got to meet up again. It's been crazy busy, very much so on his end. But we finally got some time to put some things together. And today, what are we going to do?
This is going to be the best one-wheel video for a beginner. We're going to go through a bunch of tips, and maybe you're not a beginner, maybe you bought a board and kind of abandoned it because you never quite got it. Well, this video is for you. We got tips, we got little tricks that'll help you improve your riding, and even for a seasoned vet, maybe you can pick up something. We're not the experts on any of this, but we do know a few things that'll help you get better at riding.
Yeah, so on that note, let's go say what we think is important for learning how to ride a one-wheel or float wheel, whatever.
All right, guys, basically the first thing you want to do is check your tire pressure when you get started. So I like to take a little out, add a little, depending on what kind of terrain we're riding. And I typically ride at about 15. I weigh 200 pounds, so a little bit of squish helps absorb some of the shocks from all the different terrain we ride over. So we carry a little tire pump in our pocket all the time. Not all the time. But anyway, you got
I like the kind of the rule of thumb of 10% of your body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, a good area to be looking at is right around 15 psi. I ride right around 14. I weigh 160. But yeah, I mean, that's a good basic rule of thumb.
Another good point of tire pressure is if you want more range, pump it up a little more. But realistically, going over 20 is kind of like the point where it becomes like a hard freaking ball and you're just gonna launch off every little crack and stuff. It's not that enjoyable. But if you got to get the most range, pump it up to 20. And also, if you take it down too much, you're going to get less range. So keep that in mind. Lower pressure makes a more forgiving ride and a little more squish, so it's a nicer ride. So as a beginner, you're going to want to start with a little lower pressure.
And it'll feel a little bit more stable too. Let's air it up. Catch up, I gotta talk to this guy. De-weighting, that is definitely a very important one. That is the action of when you're coming up to an obstacle, a thong, whatever it is that can throw you off your board, you want to lift your weight up. You don't want to jump off your board, but you want to de-weight. Fake jump. Fake jump. Give me a 1, give me a 2, give me a 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. You're just taking the mass of your weight and you're taking the pressure off the board. So that makes the board climb over things a lot more easy. So let's give a couple examples. Should we give a couple examples? Little cracks and imperfections in the sidewalk are a little bit less jarring if you de-weight, just like that.
Little obstacles like this become much easier if you bend your knees and de-weight, like Tyler's going to show right here. If you have locked knees or straight legs on a little bump like that, or a sewer grate, whatever you want to call it, a lot of times it'll toss you off. But if you get your knees bent good and de-weight, that kind of little hop without leaving your board, you're going to have much better success getting over these things. This board. Oh, shoot. All right, guys, this is tip number. We're talking about your footwear. Now, when you're one-wheeling footwear is something that's way more important than most people give it priority to. So what we recommend is something with a flat sole, and most skate shoes are going to be great. It is a board sport, so imagine that. Skate shoes work really good. Things you want to avoid, super cozy shoes like runners and Crocs, stuff like that, not recommended.
Side note, don't ever wear Crocs. It doesn't matter if you're riding these or not. Crocs are a no.
Right, so that's basically it. Anything like Vans or Cons or...
My personal favorite for riding are they're called Cariumas. They are these guys right here. They have a very good feel. I'm also a big fan of the Vans like Scotty is. I think that's pretty much solely what you ride is Vans.
I wear slip-on Vans pretty much exclusive when I ride, so they don't help your ankles, but I ride mostly street, so it's not a big deal for me. So,
and try different insoles. There's a lot of different insoles out there. Some of them are going to be good, some of them are going to be bad. Try different ones, see what works best for you. And yeah,
stay away from boots and sandals.
And Uggs. Did we mention Uggs yet? No.
All right, this is tip number. We're going to be talking about mounting, getting on your board. So basically, kind of goes into foot placement as well. But when you're starting off, I recommend not starting on grass or gravel or something softer, because those surfaces are also a little more wobbly. So just find a little patch. Maybe next to a fence or something where you can use the fence, or a railing like this if you need. And you get your back foot placed first. There's no sensor in the rear, so you don't have to worry about activation or anything. All the sensor is in the front. So you get your foot on there, so the blue light totally activates. Is it blue on the foot?
Yes, it is.
Get your foot on there, so the blue light totally activates. And if you want to hold on to a railing or a fence or whatever, your car, and just stand up straight. Once you're standing straight, the board activates, kind of turns on, and then you're good to go forward and backwards. But a great way to start off is just getting that front foot on there, standing up and looking where you're going. Sometimes it's okay to put a hand out front. That'll help you. And when you start looking where you're going, it'll just automatically start going that way. So
yep. And keep in mind that as long as you're keeping the mass of your body directly over the tire, your board's not going to take off on you. The only way your board is going to take off on you is if you shift a bunch of your weight on your nose or on your tail. That's the only way it's going to move. It's not going to take off. Don't be scared.
Yep, it's real simple, just standing up like that, and it'll balance you by yourself. A lot of newbies, and myself included, when I started, it was like, whoa, you think it's all wobbly because you're trying to balance. The board is balancing you. Trust it. It'll take care of you. And then when you want to go somewhere, just look in the direction you want to go.
We're going to talk about foot placement. Foot placement is definitely a big one. Where you're standing on your board definitely changes how your board's going to run or ride. It's going to change how you feel on your board. There's no real right or wrong answer. Everyone's different. There are kind of a general consensus of what a lot of people ride. When I'm riding, so this is a Pine X, it varies a little bit board to board, but overall it's still the same concept. Just play with it. So on my back foot, I like my foot a little bit closer to the tire because that's going to give me a little bit more maneuverability just because my foot is closer to the tire. I tend to tip my toes off the backside a little bit, and my heel is just on the board. My front foot, I'm not comfortable riding perpendicular like that. That is not a comfortable feel for me. So what I do is I tilt my toe towards the corner of the board a little bit, and I have my back heel off the board a little bit. So now I'm gonna have a little bit more leverage if I'm turning left on my front foot, and on my back foot a little bit more leverage if I'm taking a right. So play around with it, see what works best for you. So a good rule of thumb is going to be have your toes on the back foot a little bit off your board, your front foot have your heel a little bit off your board, and not like that, but try like that. That's going to be more comfortable, and it's a little bit safer if you do have to run something out. You're going to be able to get off your board safer and have a better chance when your foot is turned a little bit towards where you're looking. staggering your feet a little bit where your toes are off and your heel is off is going to help with the wobbles. If you're noticing that you're getting a lot of wobbles, you might be standing very uniform together. You don't want that. Stagger that so toe is off, heel is off, and that's going to help with your stability. It's going to make your board not want to wobble nearly as much as what you're probably experiencing right now.
Okay, so when you start out riding, you can also move your feet around a little bit. It's something that beginners think like, oh, I got to get my foot perfect when I get on. So I'll show you getting off. Now I'm going to get on here and not have my foot in the perfect spot. See, I can move it around a little bit and get it dialed in. The board will hold you.
Next, we're going to talk about some situational awareness. Very important. Dude, look out! Situational awareness is knowing what's going on around you. That's how you prevent yourself from eating shit a lot of the time. Nobody wants to eat shit. It doesn't taste good, so let's try not to do it. We're going to point out a couple things in this picture here where you might want to use some situational awareness. So Becky here, she's thinking about her ex-husband. She's very depressed. She can't focus on what's going on. If you're riding and you're going towards Becky, there's a good chance that situational awareness is going to be on you, not Becky, because she's thinking about Bob. So if you're coming towards her, pay attention. You got to be looking what's ahead of you. Becky is trouble.
What about Glenn?
Glenn. Oh, don't get me started on Glenn. His bike is so loud that he can't hear you coming. Also, these boards, they don't make much noise. So you hear his motorcycle, pay attention to where Glenn is. Glenn's not going to pay attention to where you are. Scotty, 20 years ago, he used to rock the Tasmanian Metallica shirt. He used to do all kinds of sketchy things that you just can't trust. I'm not trusting Scotty 20 years ago with my safety on my board. I'm going to be paying attention to Scotty, Metallica Scotty, Tasmanian Metallica Scotty from 20 years ago. Be careful.
Watch out for Peeping Tammy too. Creeper.
Come a little bit closer so you can see. And I am really going to stress this one. Be careful of the teepees. Teepees have horses in them, and if you're not paying attention, that teepee with the horses, they don't care about one wheels, float wheels, none of that. They just want to frolic. So be careful. Situational awareness. Know what's going on around you. There's a lot going on up here. Please be careful. Oh, shit, literally. Tip number, body overboard. So, when you're riding, you don't want to accelerate by putting your head in front of your board like this. That's bad. What you want to do is you want to keep your body mass and your head over the tire. Pretend there's a straight line coming up. Use your hips to accelerate. So if I want to go that way, I'm going to push my hip forward. If I want to go backwards, I can put this hip forward or backwards, however you want to say it. But the big thing is you don't want to put your mass and your head in front of your board, because that is a very easy way to overpower your board. If you clip like a hard rock or something, that's going to put more strain on the board. And if you're over here, you're going to cause your body to go flying forward off your board. Hence the term the nosedive. Don't nosedive. Nose over the board. Tip number, Gripples. If you're having troubles with your board activating, it is a really good idea to try putting some Gripples. You can get them from thefloatlife.com on the front of your board. That's going to help with the foot pad engagement. So definitely, if you're finding your board not, going when you want it to go from a stop, try Gripples. They can work wonders, and they work really good, and they give you some extra grip as well.
Okay, we're at tip number, and we're talking about how to dismount or get off your board. When you start one-wheeling, it's kind of a tricky thing, and it's always like sparks some like nervousness with newbies. So the easiest way, I think, is always just kind of rolling to a slow stop. Get stability first. Once you're kind of stable, all you do, hop right off the backside of it. Don't overthink this. It's easy to kind of like get into the wobbles and like getting your feet perfectly. Just slow down to almost a slow roll and then hop right off the backside. The next way to stop is
the heel lift, just like that. All I did there was I brought my board to a stop, pretty much 1 mile per hour or under, and I lift my foot off the back sensor. And when I lift my heel off the back sensor, that tells the board, hey, he's going under 1 mile per hour. He's going under 1 mile per hour. He's lifting his heel. He wants to stop. So when you do that, you're literally lifting your heel. The board will set you down nicely. Which brings us to yet another way to stop.
That's the final way. It's the skid stop or quick stop. It's basically you taking your front foot off that foot pad and setting it down and pushing down on the rear so it kind of skids to a stop. This isn't the easiest way, especially as a beginner, but we just wanted to include it and show you what that looks like. So there are a few pitfalls of stopping in every way we showed you, but the very most important is not taking your front or your back foot off first. All of the sensors are in the front. So keep that in mind when you want to jump off. Where people get into trouble is taking the rear foot off and the board goes taking off.
And that's a good way to get hurt. You don't want to do that.
If you have to take one foot off at a time, I would take the front foot off first because that's where the sensor is. But get in the habit of both feet off if you're jumping off.
We almost forgot one, the simple stop. The simple stop is an optional one that you can have turned on or off on your board. I normally have it turned off on mine because I like being able to still ride backwards. But simple stop, all that does is it tells your board that if you start riding backwards to set you down. So you don't have to lift your feet, you don't do anything at all. You literally just go backwards a little bit. See? Backwards. I just don't like it personally, but it could be a good option for you if you decide to do so.